Aloha, welcome to the Living in Hawaii show. My name is Carol Spearling. I am your host here this morning and so glad to have everyone joining us. I am on the Big Island and we have guests from around the state joining us. Sasha Thompson from Oahu. Aloha.
Aloha.
Great to have you here, Sasha. And
Thank
then we
you.
have
Thank you.
Kelsey from Maui
Aloha.
and Misty Padilla we have from the Big Island as well. Aloha, Misty.
Good morning, everyone.
All right. Well, thanks for everybody to join us. And here on the Living in Hawaii show, we always try to get you as much information as we can about different topics that concern and are interested by people that are looking to live here. So this morning, what we're going to target and talk about is moving here and potentially finding a place to live, whether you want to go with a roommate or you want to do like a room share or something like that. So that's kind of where we're going to target this conversation because it's a big deal. You move here and you need a place to stay, obviously. So there's a couple different ways of doing it. And also, it's one thing if you're a single individual and you just need a room, and that's not a big deal, right? But if you're coming with a family, it's another different situation. I know when I moved here, it's been many, many years, but I only have myself to look at in the mirror as to where I'm staying and what I'm doing and what kind of money I'm making. But when you have a family, it's a whole different thing. So being able to go out and find different options when you move here, we're just going to kind of go through the different choices that we have because Hawaii is relatively high cost of living and getting a roommate and doing a house share kind of a thing is a great option. So Sasha, I'm going to start with you. Just let's hear what options are on Oahu and what your experiences have been in doing rentals and roommates and family and friends and all that type of thing.
I'm going to be honest. Rentals are not the easiest thing to find here just because we have such a huge population. It's almost necessary to live with somebody else, whether it's like your spouse and your kids or a friend or a family member. It's like you almost have to because it's so expensive here. So unless you got like a really great job, most of us need 2 or 3 to even make rent and food and gas to get to work to pay the rent, right? So I'd say it's really, really important. I don't know too many people that live by themselves. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, because the cost of living here is so high and just being able to, like you said, groceries, gas, getting to work, everything, having a 2-income household is probably the best way to go overall for sure. So, cost of living on Oahu, can you give us any idea, Sasha, as far as like what rents go for, like for say a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo? Any idea? I mean, we're not rental experts, but
I like to kind of ballpark. It's about $1,000 per bedroom, starting at a studio. So a studio, you're looking at least $1,000, give or take $100 or $200. And sometimes that will include like your utilities and sometimes it doesn't. If you're looking at condos, sometimes it doesn't even include parking. So that might be an extra fee as well. But generally for every extra bedroom, it's about $1,000. So if you're
I would think location is a huge thing.
Location, not really. It's kind of like across the board, across the island. Like you might be able to find cheaper stuff out on West Side where just our even residential sales are a little bit lower on that side too. But generally speaking, rentals are rentals. There's not like, oh, if you go to this area, you're going to get a whole lot cheaper and you just drive. It's like you still got to drive and you're still paying the same amount of rent.
Okay. Right. Wow.
Yeah. So for like a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo, probably 2,200 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. That's for a condo. And then of course, you have your HOAs and then your, all your amenities, that type of thing, which is kind of tough. Chelsea, how's it in Maui? What's it like in Maui?
Yeah. So those rent prices are almost similar to Maui. I have a friend that she's actually looking for a place now and, 3 bedrooms are like $3,500 and that's a condo. That's what the prices are. It's pretty crazy. And so
that's like for a house, $3,500 a month.
No, that's for a condo. Yeah. That's for a condo style living.
For a condo.
And so, that's the reason why, we kind of hui together and live with each other. When I first moved out of my parents' house, me and my cousin came together and we actually lived in a cottage that was on my grandma's property. So we, paid my grandma rent, but that's what we did. That's how we live.
Well, and it's great because so many people, we're here in Hawaii, and family ohana is so important. And that is a foundation for a lot of people, especially young people, having a place to live and to continue to thrive here, because they can go to their parents' property and, have a small house or what have you on that property, because prices are high and it's tough. Misty, how about Big Island? What's it like here? What can you tell us about maybe single family homes and versus condos?
I totally agree with everything that Sasha and Chelsea also said. So I'll totally echo that. Sasha, that's so on point, with that comparison that you gave, approximately $1,000 per bedroom. I would totally agree with that. Mm-hmm. And I do believe that depending on location, yes, prices do elevate here on Hawaii Island. I can speak more on our west side of the island versus the east side, probably pretty comparable. But on the west side, if you kind of look at the pricing of homes, that's very relevant to what rentals would be. If the home and the location that you're looking at is high price home, you can expect to have high rent in that area. And then, of course, one of you mentioned parking. We don't struggle too much with the parking here on Hawaii Island compared to like Oahu. Street parking is very, very common here on Hawaii Island. Our condos, you can expect utilities to be included in most places, but a lot of the times they don't. So you got to anticipate, at least $1,500 for a studio. Some may or may not include utilities. You add utilities onto that, depending on your usage. That's another few $100 there. Adding additional parking, I'm sure there's charges there. And same for residentials for single family homes. Just for standard, maybe 3-bedroom, 2-bath, you can expect to pay at least $3,100 or more. And that's high, and that's why Carol said, everyone pulls together as ohana and everybody just stays together, shares, and it just really alleviates the financial burden of being able to be blessed by living in Hawaii.
Yeah, that's so true. And, kind of talking to folks on the mainland thinking about moving here that don't necessarily have family here in Ohana, I think when they get here and they are able to find a place, it's our responsibility as people that are renting out rooms or renting things. It's really important, and it really helps the social aspect of this in getting them to know different places to go, different people, and having an opportunity to meet people and just different social groups and everything. You get a job and those people and everything. And so I think, the social connections are super important as well as, and then as the ladies have all said, as far as the finances, sharing that and being able to do that. So I just kind of want to touch base on some of the places that are the best places to go and look for roommates. On the mainland, you're thinking about being here, you've been here on vacation before, and you're looking at, okay, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to do it. Chelsea, any suggestions on where would you suggest to go and look for those opportunities?
Yeah, so of course, social media is always the biggest space. So Facebook, you can look up on either island if you just search, Maui rentals or Maui roommates. Groups will pop up that you can totally find people that are offering places to live on there. You could also go on like Craigslist is another place that you could go. And I know that there's a roommates section that you can look up on there. I would also say the Maui News, but the Maui News has kind of downsized. So it could be a good spot, but there might be less listings on there versus, of course, social media is the biggest thing.
Yeah, because newspapers are almost a thing of the past. So actually having a newspaper type of a thing, that's not really going to be that. But, the social media thing and everything. Now, Sasha, I think I heard you mention last week when we were talking about this topic, something about Tinder, and that's not a good idea.
Yeah, you might want to stay off of Tinder. But finding a roommate can kind of feel like you're on a Tinder date. You know what I mean? Like, I would say yes, social media for sure. I don't know how many people really read newspapers too much anymore, but we have this thing here called Coconut Wireless. Like, everybody knows everybody somehow here. And so definitely talk to people. You can go on social and you can try and find places and stuff, but I guarantee somebody that you work with or go to church with will know who's posting that, and you can do a little background check. Like, that's what I would do. Like, over here, word travels fast. And if you want to know about somebody, all you got to do is speak the name and everybody will be like, oh, I know so-and-so. I know so-and-so. And to me, that's the best way to find out if you're going to get somebody solid or not.
Which, you just mentioned that key phrase, right? Because a lot of people on the mainland, they're going to be word of mouth, right? They're going to be word of mouth. That's what the phrase is that they're going to understand. Here,
I say coconut wireless.
All about coconut wireless.
Right. It's Gilligan's Island, baby. You just like
Misty, what you can explain coconut wireless to us a little bit more. Sasha did, but you can kind of go a little bit further with it.
Yeah,
please.
it's just a phrase that we use here. Awesome. Yeah. It's like, the old cups with the string when you were learning about physics and stuff in school. And I don't know if they even sell that anymore, but you play telephone. Like, coconut wireless here is like, we just got, what is that, like 5 degrees of separation is probably like 3 here, right? Because everybody knows everybody. And if you're from here and you go generations deep, you know everybody somehow, and so word travels fast, and like, that's the one thing, whether you're in a roommate, you're on social, you're working, you don't want your name to be bad because everybody is going to know who you are. And so that's the number one thing. It's not hard to find out about somebody if you're here.
That is so true. Because no matter what, we are a small state, but we have a big population and we have a big core that makes that everybody does know each other. And again, coconut wireless, that's how we call word of mouth. And it is, the best way of getting things around. And you have to be careful because you say good things about people, that's going to get around. But you say bad things about people, it's going to get around even more.
Yeah, so and they're going to come back like, what you said? Yeah,
absolutely. So I want to just move on about some considerations when we're looking for roommates and what we're looking for. Misty, compatibility, having someone come into your home, renting a room out to them, having a roommate. How does that affect the person that's renting out? Or if it's, you have family members, but if it's a stranger coming from the mainland, you really have to interview them and know what you're getting into. What can you kind of enlighten us on that?
I completely agree with everything that you just said. I cannot personally speak into that experience because I have not experienced it, but I do have family and friends that have. And it is huge, on who you decide to choose to live with, how you decide to, live, where you found them. And exactly as you said, word travels fast. Bad news travels faster. And that tends to stay embedded in everyone's mind more than anything, no matter how good it is. The bad always sticks, right? That's just naturally how everything is here. And so, finding, a roommate, it's so crucial. Who do you want to wake up with every day? Who do you want to fall asleep in the same house under the same roof every day?
Yeah. And just having the financial backing and making sure that financially they can pay their rent and, and going over, checking their references and going back, they're coming here from the mainland. You don't know them from anybody. You want to make sure that they have references that you can go back and check. You can call on the mainland and talk to their previous landlord, and you know what kind of a person they are. So that, I think, is something definitely, when you're moving here, to consider that you need to have those references ready and be able to provide them to the potential person that you're going to be renting from, because there's a lot of things that can go on with the previous history. And then also, I think we really need to, and Chelsea, maybe you can speak to this as far as lease and legal considerations, just how that is formed to have legally binding for a certain amount of time.
Right. So when it comes to accepting a roommate, you have to consider that it's actually a rental agreement that you're going into contract with somebody. And it's, you can have somebody stay with you, and then they'll, even if it's not written, they're staying with you. So like, if you want to maybe part ways with that roommate, you still have to allow them, enough reasonable time to be able to find another place and move out. You can't just say, hey, you're out, and they're out, that afternoon. I believe it's 30 days if you're on a month-to-month, and then 45 days if you have like a longer lease with somebody.
You can't just break up. Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Have rights. That's another thing about our rental market is our landlords don't have a lot of, it's not in favor of the landlords. And that's another reason why we have such a hard rental market, and why most landlords will have property managers which also makes it really even more hard for somebody to get into a place, because then they have, and this is a good thing, you got to prove all your income like 3 times as much. Like you got to have, like, our rent property managers have a big job, and most landlords will do that. But like, yeah, you can have somebody on a month to month or on a verbal contract, and you can't just kick them out. On Oahu, it's 45 days notice. And even if they come in and start squatting on your stuff in your property, like, you still have to go through legal actions to get them removed, even though they don't have a contract. So that's a little bit, like, our rental market is a little bit, it's a little bit messed up because of stuff like that. It makes it hard for renters, and it makes it hard for landlords too. So, and then that also, like, I know people who will like want to rent out a house and then sublease rooms. Like, you can't always do that either, so there's a lot of rules and stuff, but
there's a lot of legalities in when you do that. And you, like, if you were to rent a house and then you want to sublease out, I mean, that's all something like a property manager, which is a great idea. If you're going to be doing that, having a property manager is a great idea. But just, knowing these things, that as you're coming over here, I just want to remind everybody as you're watching that, hey, reach out to us at Living in Hawaii. We're here for you. We're here to answer questions. You can drop us a chat and we will get back to you. Chelsea on Maui, Sasha on Oahu, Misty and myself on the Big Island. So, please, if you guys have questions about any of this, please reach out to us. We really would appreciate to hear from you. Keeping everything smooth and even. I think that, we've touched on most of the topics as far as being educated in who you're renting to, and being educated in wanting to be a renter, and knowing what you need to bring with you. And again, you guys touched on finances, first, last, and a security deposit is what most, like, property management, and a cleaning deposit potentially too. So you kind of need to be thinking about it when you move here, to have $7,000 target, dedicated just to that, to find a place. And then you have a little bit of a cushion on top of it. Because first, last, if you're talking, $1,000 a bedroom, okay, so there's 1,000 there, 2,000, first and last, there's 2,000 security, another, there's 3,000. And that's just for a room in a condo. If you're talking house, that's a whole nother thing. So really keep in mind when you're planning on moving here, adjust your finances and be aware that it is a financial obligation that you need to be aware of when you come, because it is expensive to live here, but it's worth it. And we all love it. We all have lived here for many, many years. And, the opportunity when you get into a home with somebody here, you get in with folks, you're a roommate situation, it's your opportunity. And again, it's an opportunity to build community, to get out and know people. Potentially the person that you're rooming with is part of a canoe club and you get involved in that. Or they're part of a pickleball team and you get involved in that. So it's a really great opportunity to get out and get to know people, and on the flip side of that, it's important to remember that everyone deserves their individual privacy. So that I think is a very important thing to consider. Chelsea, maybe you can kind of chime in on that, as far as, I think you have roommates, and knowing where boundaries, that's a big thing.
Yeah, for sure. So actually, I am housing some friends that moved from the Big Island to Maui, and they're in the process of finding a rental themselves, and being able to just give them their own space, they have their own room, they have their own bathroom, and we have like a shelf that's theirs for a refrigerator, because that's something else that we never touched on. But the lifestyles and the way we eat, she eats different things and my family eats different things. And, she has a different diet that I'm on. So, we're cooking. And so we have to time, oh, you're going to cook this time, I'm going to cook this time. And even our laundry schedules, that's another thing. She does Mondays and Wednesdays, and I'll do like Thursdays and Fridays. So there's all kinds of different things that you have to work out when you're living with somebody. And then giving that person their privacy, especially like if they have their own room. And then a lot of houses that we need to consider only have one bathroom. When it's somebody's bathroom time, if you're living in a house that there's only one bathroom, you need to be sure that, okay, now maybe you have to do a schedule, like, this is my bathroom time from this time to this time. This is another, this is your bathroom time from this time to this time. So those are some kind of cool things that you never think about until you actually have a roommate or, somebody living with you that's not part of your immediate family.
Yeah, just so different. And, bringing up the bathroom thing, only one bathroom, that's a hard one. one. That's a hard thing to live with, and a hard thing to share. Honestly, is everybody's kind of personal about that type of thing, and just getting that personal time. Misty, can you jump in on any of this and give us some of your insight?
I completely agree with all that you've said. Another one to touch on is also pets. We didn't really touch too much on pets, but it's really hard to find rentals that allow pets. And sometimes, even children, they can't say, oh, no children, no pets. But when you do your discovery, you can kind of get a feel of what type of people or any being that they want in their home. And bottom line, it does come down to their say, but it's very difficult to find homes that allow extra space for children and for pets. Yes, you can have your emotional support pet, but at the same time, they'll charge you with some high fees. And I mean, you folks have hit it on point with all the things that we need to consider when finding, a roommate here in Hawaii.
That's a great point, Misty. And that is a big deal, pets and kids, because not every property is set up for pets. They need, to have a yard or whatever for pets. And then kids is another thing. You have 3 kids under 10 years old. I mean, I wouldn't be able to handle that. That would be like, no. Pet, no problem. Kids, no. So that's a
Especially
good point
if
to bring.
it's, upstairs and downstairs, all these things, do you want kids jumping above your home, all the things to consider. And like Chelsea said, you never really consider all these things until you actually go through it. Where again, bottom line for me and trying to find a roommate, if that time ever, needed to come across, is the safety. These days there's so much scams, and it's like, oh my gosh, thankfully we have great resources where we can pull rap sheets and background checks and, do all the things that, can assist us in making a sound decision. But at the same time, even calling references, people can scam their way through that and fake reference calls. And we just really caution everyone, do your research, do your due diligence. And it's great knowing the locals because like we said, you just ask a local person and they'll know who they are. And immediately you'll get your reference check right there.
Yeah.
Very, very, very true. Very true. Well, you guys, this has been a great topic. And I really hope, again, as you're watching us here at Living in Hawaii, that you're learning something from us. And again, please reach out. I'm just going to quickly go around and ask for final thoughts before we close this one up. Sasha, I'll start with you on Oahu. Final thoughts on finding a roommate or being a roommate here in Hawaii.
Final thought is, again, like Chelsea, like everybody said, we live together. So that's how we afford it. We live together. And if you're trying to date somebody and they still live with their mama and their grandma, that's a good thing. Like it's respectable.
We love it.
We don't kick each other out. You get a job and you help pay rent for your room.
I love it. Love it. Thanks, Sasha. Chelsea.
That is so true. And like I said, if you come to Hawaii and you're looking for a place to stay, you live with a local, because that is the best way that you are going to infuse yourself and become part of the ohana here in Hawaii.
Absolutely true. And Misty?
Same. I echo everything you just said for all of you. And yes, just aloha living everywhere you go is really what sums it up.
That's very true. And, my final thoughts is, be patient as you're looking for a place. Be patient. You're coming from the mainland. You're coming here. You're looking to live here. An opportunity like this to rent a room is also going to give you a good idea of really where you want to live, right? Because if you can get a room on a short-term notice and you decide, I don't want to live in Hilo, it rains too much, you can change that up and go to Kona and be like, oh, I really like it here. Or same thing, west side, east side, Maui, all of those things. So be patient, just do your research, come with good references, come with that bank account, and reach out to us. If we can help in any way, we will. We'd love to hear from you, and we will say aloha for this show. Guys, have a great week.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you.